The first time Princess Isabella heard the name Lady Ravenna, a servant dropped a tray of crystal goblets and whispered a prayer under her breath. It was an accident, they claimed. The hallway was drafty. The floor was uneven. But Isabella knew better. There was something in that name that turned warm blood to ice. Ravenna. It rolled like silk soaked in poison. Her father, King Aldrin, announced the betrothal with the same calculated calm he used when declaring war. The alliance is necessary, he said, not looking her in the eyes. Their lands border the northern wastes. We need their old magic. Old magic. The kind no one spoke of at court unless behind closed doors, with candles lit and salt sprinkled across the floor. The kind that lingered in the bones of cursed families. And none were more whispered about than the House of Duskthorn, Ravenna's house. It had been centuries since anyone had seen one of their heirs in daylight. Their ancestral estate, Black Thistle Keep, was shrouded in permanent fog, and some swore the forest around it moved. Still, a princess does not question. A princess obeys. That's what she told herself as the first letter arrived, sealed in wax, so cold it burned her fingers. The parchment shimmered strangely, almost wet, and the ink, by the gods, the ink glowed like starlight caught in a vial. My dearest Isabella, it began, written in an elegant, slanted hand, I hope this letter finds you under gentle skies. The moon is high tonight, and I find myself thinking of you more than I should. There was nothing overtly romantic in those words, and yet Isabella felt something stir. She had expected coldness, formality, not this strange warmth that pulsed beneath each carefully chosen phrase. She replied, of course. It was expected, but her words were stiff, unsure. How do you write to a ghost you've been promised to? The letters continued, week after week, always arriving by owl, black-feathered, silent, and always glowing faintly when the moonlight touched the page. Tell me, princess, one letter read, what do you dream of when you are most afraid? It was a strange question, too intimate, but she answered anyway. She told her about the sea, about drowning, about how sometimes she awoke with salt on her tongue and the sound of waves in her ears. Ravenna's next reply was only a single line, then perhaps I will learn to breathe water for you. Isabella read that sentence so many times the parchment began to fray. Yet, despite the intimacy of the letters, their meetings were unsettling. Always arranged in places half-lit. Candlelit drawing rooms. Shaded gardens at twilight. Once, on the edge of the palace chapel, Ravenna stood beneath the rose window, the colors casting her in violet and blood-red hues. She was tall, slim, dressed always in black, her figure concealed by thick velvet. And the veil, that cursed veil, it covered her from head to waist, opaque and flowing like liquid shadow. Do you always hide your face? Isabella asked once, unable to help herself. Ravenna's answer was quiet, almost a sigh. Some things are not meant to be seen in daylight. Her voice was low and rich, like dark wine. But there was something else beneath it, an ache, a hunger. Isabella wasn't sure if it was longing or something more dangerous. The servants grew restless. They said the mirrors in the west wing had shattered one by one after Ravenna's last visit, that the castle hounds whimpered and refused to enter her chambers, that a stable boy had gone mad after glimpsing her silhouette against the moon. Don't look too long, the maid Elira warned, clutching a silver pendant around her neck. She's not meant for your eyes, Highness. She's not natural. But what did that even mean, in a world where witches walked among them in disguise, where the forest still whispered spells in ancient tongues? Isabella was no stranger to the uncanny. And yet, Ravenna was different. It wasn't just the veil, or the cold that followed her like perfume. It was the way her letters knew things Isabella had never told anyone. The way her presence made shadows twist. The way her words slid under the princess's skin and stayed there. The wedding date loomed like a storm on the horizon. And though Isabella tried to tell herself it was just duty, just politics, her hands trembled each time a new letter arrived. I wonder what you will see, Ravenna wrote one night, when you finally look into my eyes. Will you flinch, princess? Or will you understand? Isabella couldn't sleep after that. She lit candle after candle, stared at her own reflection until dawn. She dreamt of a woman wrapped in shadows, standing at the edge of her bed. No face, only a presence that pressed down on her chest and whispered, "You are not ready, but you will be." Days passed, then weeks. Then finally, the eve of the wedding arrived. Ravenna would come in the morning. The veil would fall. The truth would be revealed. Isabella sat by the window, the final letter trembling in her lap, unopened. Outside, the moon was full, huge and blood-bright. The candle flickered, and somewhere, in the shadows beyond her door, something moved. She did not sleep. Not a single breath of rest touched her lungs as the night stretched itself like a beast across her chamber. The moon hung cruel and wide, watching her through the slits in the window as if it, too, were waiting for what would come with dawn. Isabella sat curled in her velvet chair, the final letter still sealed, her fingers cold around the parchment. She didn't open it. Not yet. She was afraid, not of Ravenna, no, but of what she might feel if the words inside were more beautiful than she could bear. The line between terror and desire had thinned into something fragile, shimmering, and she could not say which way she would fall when it broke. A soft knock echoed at her door. Once. Twice. She froze. "Highness." Elira's voice. Thin, nervous. "They've arrived." Isabella's heart thudded, slow and heavy. Already, at first light, she waits in the sanctuary, with the high priest. The wedding. Gods, it was real now. The veil would fall. The letters would end. The truth would rise like a tide and drown her if she wasn't ready. She rose slowly, every part of her stiff from hours of stillness. Her gown had already been laid out, white as snow, embroidered with moon thread and trimmed in sapphire. She did not remember choosing it. It felt too pure, too light, like a lie against the weight that pressed on her chest. The moment she stood before the mirror, Elira gasped. "What is it?" Isabella asked, her voice hoarse. "Your eyes." The maid fell silent. "Never mind, Highness. Just nerves, I suppose." But Isabella saw it too. Something in her gaze had changed. A brightness. A sharpness. Like something was blooming behind her pupils, something ancient. "Bring the letter," she said quietly. Elira hesitated, then handed it to her. Isabella broke the seal. The ink glittered as always, as though written in crushed stars. "My beloved," it began. "By the time you read this, I will be near, perhaps closer than you realize. I wonder, will your hands tremble as mine do now? Will your breath catch when you see me, unveiled at last? I have feared this moment more than death itself, yet I crave it more than blood. You do not yet know what I am, but you will. And still I hope your heart will not flee when mine is finally shown to you." Isabella's throat tightened. The page smelled faintly of lavender, and something else, iron, maybe, or roses drowned in wine. She didn't speak as she was dressed, veiled, crowned. She didn't flinch when the palace doors opened and the ceremonial horns cried out across the kingdom. But she noticed. She noticed that the air grew colder the closer she came to the sanctuary. She noticed that not a bird sang, that even the sun seemed reluctant to rise above the horizon. The guests gathered like shadows in the pews. Nobles, lords, emissaries, draped in color and gold. But none of them mattered. Her eyes searched only for one figure. And when she saw her, the world stopped breathing. Ravenna stood at the altar, a pillar of black lace and stillness. Her gown shimmered like the night sky stretched over a grave. The veil covered her from head to waist, more opaque than Isabella remembered, and yet she knew that Ravenna was staring directly at her, watching her every step. Isabella's feet moved without her command, drawn forward as if by gravity. And the moment they stood face to face, the world narrowed to a pulse. The high priest's voice was distant thunder. "Do you, Princess Isabella of House Alarin, bind your soul to Lady Ravenna of House Duskthorn? Isabella looked at her. At the veil. At the trembling fingertips just barely visible beneath its edge. Her voice was steady. I do. A pause. Then, do you, Lady Ravenna, accept this union under oath of light and shadow? There was a silence. Long, unsettling. The room shifted, the very walls seeming to lean closer, as if they too awaited her answer. And then, softly, I do. The priest turned to Isabella. Lift her veil, and seal your vow. The hall exhaled as one. Isabella's hands rose. The veil was impossibly heavy, cold, as if it resisted being touched by mortal skin. But she pushed through. She reached, and as her fingers found the edge, a whisper, not from Ravenna, but from somewhere, you cannot unsee what is seen. The veil fell, and Isabella froze. The hall behind her vanished. There was only Ravenna, and she was breathtaking. Not monstrous, not broken, but terrible in the most exquisite way. Her skin was pale like snowfall under moonlight, flawless, smooth. Her lips the color of ripe berries in winter. Her hair cascaded in waves of obsidian silk, and her eyes, gods. Her eyes were a galaxy of blood and starlight, luminous and ancient and impossible. A beauty that did not belong in this world. A face too perfect to be human. And yet her fangs were there, small, sharp, gleaming just behind her lips. A predator's smile, hidden in elegance. The hall gasped. Somewhere, someone screamed. But Isabella didn't move. She could not. She only stared, heart thundering, unable to breathe. Ravenna did not look away. This is me, she whispered, soft as ash. This is what I am. Her voice trembled. Not with hunger, with fear. As if she truly believed Isabella would run. And she might have. She might have fled, had she not seen it. There, behind the beauty, behind the nightmare, longing. Not to kill, not to control, but to be seen. Truly seen. Isabella's mouth opened. But before she could speak, a hand grasped her wrist. Firm. Urgent. Elira. Her face pale as death. You must come, she hissed. Now. What? It's your father. The king. He's collapsed. Isabella turned, the veil still clutched in her fingers. The hall erupted into chaos. And Ravenna took a single step back, eyes never leaving hers.
Go, she said.
But remember this moment. Isabella hesitated. 1 heartbeat.
2.
Then she turned and ran, the echo of Ravenna's gaze carved into her skin like a brand. She ran through the echoing halls like a hunted thing, her wedding gown dragging behind her like a ghost that didn't want to let go. The white fabric was stained with ash and dust by the time she burst into her father's chambers, the heavy doors swinging open with a groan that felt like the cry of something ancient and broken. Father? Her voice cracked. The air inside was sharp with incense and something else, bitter, metallic.
Blood.
The physicians circled the bed like vultures around a dying star. Elira clutched her arm, but said nothing. She didn't have to. One look at the king's ashen face, his eyes rolled back, mouth slack and trembling with some whispered agony. Isabella knew. He was not gone, but he was slipping. He collapsed during the ceremony, a physician muttered. No visible wound. No sign of poison. His pulse is erratic. We've never seen. Out, Isabella said. The word cut through them like a blade. All of you, leave us. They hesitated. She was the princess, but now, perhaps more. She was the queen by blood, the wife of something terrifying. The room emptied, slowly, one by one, until she was alone with her father and the heavy weight of silence. She approached the bed. The scent of smoke clung to the sheets. You should have told me, she whispered.
About them.
About the Duskthorns. About her. His fingers twitched. Eyes fluttered. For a second, she thought he might speak. And then she felt it. A pulse of something dark. Cold. It slid through the floor, up her legs, coiling like a serpent of shadow around her ribs. She turned sharply. The fire in the hearth dimmed. The windows darkened. And from the corner of the room, a voice emerged, soft, velvet-slick, and low. You were never supposed to see her unveiled. Isabella didn't move. Who are you? The figure stepped from the shadows. Not Ravenna. A woman, older, taller, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that flickered crimson when the candlelight touched them. I am the aunt, the guardian, the first of the blood that remains. You may call me Lysandra. You're one of them. We are all of us, one of them. You just never noticed before. Isabella felt her spine stiffen. What did you do to my father? He trespassed, Lysandra said smoothly. He broke a vow made long before your time. He sought to bind our bloodline to his will, not yours. That was never the bargain. Isabella's heart pounded. Then why the wedding? Because Ravenna loves you. The words struck like ice water. She doesn't even know me. She knows you better than you think. Her letters. Did you never wonder how she knew what you dreamed? What you feared? There are spells older than the kingdoms of men. Bonds that form in ink and longing. And she reached for you long before the betrothal was arranged. Isabella's lips parted, but she couldn't find the air to answer. Your father sought to destroy her, Lysandra continued. He sent silver blades, holy water, fire-charmed assassins. All failed. Yet she let the marriage proceed. She hoped you might be different. And I'm supposed to believe you? Isabella hissed. You, who walk through shadows and strike down kings without a blade? Lysandra smiled faintly. You are braver than him already. What do you want? Only to give you a choice. Leave her. Renounce the union. Walk away and never speak her name again. Or return to her and become something more than you've ever imagined. Why now? Because the veil has fallen, and once a veil is lifted, the world cannot return to blindness. The shadows recoiled. The air shifted, and Lysandra was gone. Isabella stumbled backward, chest heaving. Her father still lay unmoving, mouth slack. The fire reignited itself, but the room felt forever changed. Her wedding gown clung to her like a second skin. Her hands still smelled faintly of Ravenna's veil. Somewhere deep in her bones, something ancient stirred. And that night, alone in her chambers, she could not stop thinking about Ravenna's face. Not just its impossible beauty, but the sadness in it. The fear. The vulnerability that had nothing to do with fangs or curses. She sat at her writing desk and, for the first time, picked up a quill not out of duty, but longing. My lady, she wrote, I saw you today, truly, and I did not flinch, but I do not yet understand. If you would have me, come to me not in penumbra, not hidden in candlelight. Come to me fully. Let me see what you fear most. Let me know what you are willing to bleed for. Let me decide not from duty, but from desire. She sealed the letter in wax the color of night, left it on the sill, and whispered a name she did not know she remembered. Ravenna. The owl came before dawn.
Silent.
Watching. Waiting. The letter vanished in its talons. And Isabella did not sleep. Because beneath her skin, something had shifted. Something that felt suspiciously like hunger. The sun rose with no warmth. It climbed over the palace towers like a reluctant promise, casting pale light through frost-laced windows, but failing to thaw the cold that had settled inside Isabella's chest. She stood at the edge of the east balcony, the wind clawing at her gown, her hair unbound and wild, her fingers still stained with dried ink and uncertainty. The letter was gone. The owl had taken it into the violet veil of night without a sound. And now she waited. Beneath her, the palace stirred, servants hurrying with downcast eyes, guards whispering of omens, nobles packing their carriages before dawn. They thought the king's illness was a curse. They thought the wedding had awakened something that should have remained buried. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps Isabella herself had become the thing they feared. She didn't care. Not anymore. Not after what she'd seen. Not after what Ravenna's eyes had shown her. Something eternal. Yes, but also something breakable. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected the way Ravenna's gaze had trembled beneath all that power, how it had seemed to ask her not for obedience, but for acceptance. A flutter of wings broke the silence. The owl was back. It perched on the railing beside her, its feathers darker than coal, its eyes like drops of pitch. Tied to its leg was a scroll wrapped in ribbon the color of bruised violets. Isabella's throat closed as she untied it, her breath catching when the paper unfurled. The ink glowed beneath the sunlight as though defying it. "My heart," it began. "You wrote to me with boldness. I feared silence. I feared rejection. But instead, you gave me hope. So I will give you truth." The letter was longer than any Ravenna had written before. Each line bled with memory, with longing. "I was not born into darkness. I was made, taken during the war that stole my mother, cursed by a creature that called itself salvation. I resisted it. I refused to feed. I locked myself beneath the earth until I could no longer remember the sun. But hunger always wins. And when I returned, I was no longer what I once was. I have tried to protect you from this, from me. But your eyes, God's, Isabella, your eyes, see through everything I try to hide." Isabella's hands trembled. The letter continued. "You ask to see what I fear most. Then come, tonight, to Black Thistle Keep.
Alone.
Bring no guards, no blades. Only yourself. If you still wish to look upon me without shadows, I will open every door. But know this, once you cross the threshold, there is no turning back. My world does not forgive. And neither do I. No signature. No title. Just the impression of a kiss burned into the parchment, as if sealed with heat instead of wax." Isabella pressed the letter to her chest. Her pulse echoed in her throat.
She didn't hesitate.
She didn't summon her counsel, didn't seek her father's approval. Not that he could give it now, anyway. She dressed in midnight blue riding leathers, threw a cloak over her shoulders, and slipped from the palace with only Elira intercepting her path. "You're going to her." It wasn't a question. "You know what she is." "I do. And still." Isabella's voice was steady. "Still." Elira looked pained. "Then take this." She pressed a small vial into Isabella's palm. "Moon water.
Blessed.
If she turns, if she loses control, she won't. Isabella, she won't." The forest greeted her like a cathedral of ghosts. The trees were older than kingdoms, their branches clawing the sky, their trunks slick with moss that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins. Fog clung to the ground, whispering secrets in a language she didn't speak but somehow understood. Her horse refused to go farther past the 7th stone marker. She dismounted without fear, the path curling ahead like a serpent's spine. And there it was, Black Thistle Keep, rising from the mist like the memory of a fortress, its towers jagged against the sky, its gates of iron twisted into thorns. Candles flickered in only one window, the highest. Isabella stepped forward. The gates opened on their own. Inside, the halls breathed. Shadows crawled along the walls in patterns that did not match the candlelight. The mirrors were all covered in black silk. The silence was total, until a voice broke it. "You came." "Ravenna." "Not above. Behind." Isabella turned slowly, and froze. No veil. No darkness. Ravenna stood before her, cloaked in nothing but honesty. Her gown was crimson, sheer and flowing like wine over marble. Her hair spilled down her back in curls kissed by starlight. Her lips were parted, her chest rising and falling as if she had been holding her breath for centuries. "You said you wanted to see," she whispered. "So look." Isabella stepped closer. Ravenna didn't move. Her eyes shimmered, not with magic this time, but emotion.
Raw.
Human. Terrifying in its vulnerability. "You're not what I expected," Isabella said. "What did you expect?" "A monster." "And what do you see now?" Isabella's fingers brushed her cheek, the skin smooth and impossibly cool. "Someone trying not to break." Ravenna's eyes closed. "I wanted to scare you away. I needed to. But you kept answering my letters. You kept searching. And now," her voice broke. Now I am more afraid of you loving me than hating me.
Why?
Because love demands truth. And truth, she turned slightly, revealing the bare line of her spine, where scars bloomed like silver thorns. Truth is not always beautiful. You are, Isabella said. You're terrifying. And impossible. And beautiful in ways that make my bones ache. Ravenna turned back, eyes blazing. Then kiss me. If you mean it. The air pulsed between them. A heartbeat.
A dare.
Isabella reached for her, but stopped. Not yet. Ravenna blinked. Why? Because I need to know, Isabella said, breath catching. If this is real. If what I feel is mine or something your magic gave me. If I kiss you now, I won't be able to walk away if I need to. Ravenna nodded slowly. Then stay. Not as my bride. Not yet. But as yourself. Learn the truth. All of it. Will you give it to me? Even the parts that bleed. Then I'll stay. Ravenna's smile was slow.
Sad.
But genuine. Then welcome to the dark, my princess. I hope it doesn't devour you. Isabella's heart answered before her mind could catch up. I hope it does. Night in Black Thistle, keep did not fall. It descended like a crown of shadow, slow and deliberate, claiming every stone and corridor with a kind of quiet hunger. There were no stars, only a sky thick with velvet clouds, pulsing faintly with an unnatural hue that matched the flicker of the torches lining the ancient hallways. Isabella stood at the threshold of Ravenna's world, her cloak dripping with forest mist, her heartbeat far too loud in the hush of the keep. No servants greeted her. No guards. Only Ravenna, who led her through the dark with silent steps, her bare feet touching the cold marble as if weightless. She said nothing, but glanced back often, as if afraid Isabella might disappear if she didn't. You said I would learn the truth, Isabella murmured as they passed under a stone arch carved with runes that whispered when touched by torchlight. Where does it begin? Ravenna stopped. They were in a corridor lined with closed doors, each marked with different symbols, some elegant, some violent. Here, Ravenna said. This wing holds the memories of my bloodline. Each room, a history, a confession. She opened the first door. Inside was a chamber filled with mirrors. All shattered, all facing inward. At the center stood a single cradle, untouched by dust. Isabella's skin prickled. What is this? My mother's grief, Ravenna said softly. She lost me before she ever knew what I would become. She swore to shield me from the curse that had claimed her sisters. But curses find their way home. Isabella moved toward one of the broken mirrors, drawn by a compulsion she couldn't explain. Her reflection was fragmented, 10 of her staring back, each with a slightly different expression. She stepped back. What happened to her? She bled herself to keep me fed, refused to let me bite a soul. She said no daughter of hers would become a predator. Ravenna's voice cracked. But hunger doesn't listen to love. The night she died, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Isabella closed the door for her. You said you were made, not born. Ravenna nodded. Bitten at 17. A battlefield orphan. I fed on soldiers for days before I realized I wasn't dying. I was changing. They found me buried beneath a pile of corpses, teeth stained, eyes wild. They should have ended me then. But the curse, it wanted me to last. She opened another door. This room was smaller. A writing desk. 1,000 letters stacked in perfect order. All sealed. All addressed to the girl with moonlight in her spine. Isabella stared. You wrote to me before we met. Long before. But how? I dreamed you. Ravenna turned to her fully now. Before your name. Before your face. I dreamed of a girl who would stare into my eyes and not run. Who would press her hands to my heart and not recoil. And when I saw your portrait the day your father proposed the union, I knew it was you. I began to write. I never stopped. Isabella moved to the desk. She picked one letter at random. Opened it. The ink still shimmered, though the page was yellowed with age. I wonder if your laughter sounds like bells or fire, it read. I wonder if your spine curves when you cry. I wonder if you'll hate me when you know what I've done to survive. Her throat tightened. These are beautiful. They're desperate, Ravenna said. A girl locked in a curse with nothing but ink and longing to hold on to. You could have chosen anyone. I didn't want anyone. I wanted you. Their eyes met.
And it was different now.
Not a game. Not a dance. Something more dangerous. More sacred. Ravenna stepped closer, close enough that Isabella could see the shift in her pupils when the candlelight hit, like galaxies folding in on themselves. You said you'd stay, Ravenna whispered. But do you know what that means? Isabella tilted her chin up. Tell me. It means you'll see everything. The hunger. The rage. The centuries I spent wishing I could die and knowing I couldn't. It means you'll watch me feed. Then show me. You don't understand what you're asking. Yes, I do. Silence stretched between them like silk pulled taut. Then Ravenna turned. Come. She led Isabella down a spiral staircase, so steep and narrow it felt like descending into the throat of the earth. At the bottom was a stone chamber lit by moonlight pouring through a slit in the ceiling. Chains hung from the walls, not rusted, but polished. Ready. Ravenna stood in the center, breath shallow. Sometimes, she said, when the hunger takes me, I lose myself. The part of me that speaks, that writes, that loves, it drowns. I cage myself here to keep others safe. Have you ever? Isabella didn't finish. She didn't want to. Ravenna answered anyway. I've never fed on anyone I loved. And now, I don't know if I can stay away from you long enough not to try. Isabella's breath hitched. Then let me see it. Isabella, if I'm going to love you, I want to love all of you, even the parts that scare me. Ravenna's jaw tightened. Her fangs were visible now, not fully extended, but present. Her eyes burned with warning. Don't offer yourself unless you mean it. Once I taste you, I will never be able to forget. You'll live in me. Always. Maybe that's where I want to live. The words left her before she could soften them, before she could question why her chest ached with such fierce longing. Ravenna stepped forward like a woman possessed. Her hand found Isabella's jaw. Cold, gentle, reverent. Then don't flinch. Her lips brushed the hollow of Isabella's throat. Isabella gasped, a spark arcing down her spine. But Ravenna didn't bite. She just breathed her in, trembling. Not tonight, Ravenna said. You're not ready. And neither am I. Isabella's knees nearly buckled. Then when you ask me not out of courage but need. She turned, climbing back toward the stairs, her presence leaving the room colder in her absence. Isabella stood there for a long time, hand pressed to her own pulse. And in the echo of her heartbeat, she heard it, mine, 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 not from her own lips, but Ravenna's, echoing from the stone like a spell that had already been cast. There were no clocks in Black Thistle Keep. Time passed like breath held too long, taut, invisible, waiting to collapse. Isabella no longer knew how many days she had spent inside Ravenna's world. The air was different here. The light bent differently, like even the sun was cautious. But she did not miss the palace. She did not ask about her father. She did not dream of courtly banquets or golden hallways. She only thought of Ravenna, and the way she hadn't bitten her.
Not yet.
That restraint haunted her more than any feeding ever could. It wasn't fear anymore. It was ache. She felt it in her fingertips, in her throat, in the hollowness of her chest when Ravenna passed too close and didn't touch her. That night, the keep was restless. Windows clicked in their frames though there was no wind. The stone groaned softly beneath her feet. The candles flickered with no air. Isabella wandered the library, an impossibly vast room she hadn't dared enter until now. The books stretched upward into blackness, the latter carved with ancient names she couldn't read. She climbed, not searching for anything in particular, just needing to move, needing to breathe. But when she reached the fourth tier, she found something tucked between two tomes, a journal. Leather-bound.
Worn.
Unmarked. It smelled faintly of ash and roses. She opened it. and recognized the handwriting instantly. Ravenna. The first page held no date. Only a line. I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to be wanted. Isabella sat on the ledge, heart pounding, and read. Page after page. Blood-stained memories. Painful confessions. Names of women Ravenna had loved, barely touched, then abandoned before the hunger could consume them. But none of the entries held the same weight as the last one. It had been written not in blood, but in tears. The ink was smeared, the handwriting shaking. She saw me. The princess. She looked and didn't flinch. God's help me. I will ruin her. Enjoying your reading? Isabella jolted. Ravenna stood below her, eyes unreadable, lips tight with something like shame. You wrote this for me, Isabella said. Not a question. I wrote it for myself, Ravenna replied. But you were always the ending I didn't dare imagine. She started to turn away. Don't, Isabella said, louder than she meant to. Don't walk away from me again. Ravenna froze. You shouldn't be here.
Why?
Because tonight, I can feel the hunger waking. Then let it. No, why not? Because I don't want to taste you when I'm starving. But you want to taste me. Ravenna looked up at her, slowly. More than I've ever wanted anything. Isabella descended the ladder with quiet steps, the book clutched against her chest. When she reached the ground, she didn't speak. She stepped into Ravenna's space and waited. Her breath was slow, measured. Then what are we waiting for? Ravenna's eyes darkened. You still don't understand. This thing inside me, it's not romantic. It's not gentle. It's need. When it takes over, I won't be careful. I won't be soft. Isabella lifted her chin. Maybe I don't want soft. The silence between them cracked. And then Ravenna moved. Faster than light. Faster than breath. Isabella found herself pinned against the wall. Ravenna's hand braced beside her head, her lips so close Isabella could feel each word against her mouth. Say stop, Ravenna whispered. And I will. Isabella didn't. Ravenna's mouth descended, not on her lips, but her throat. A kiss. Then a second lower. Then a graze of fong against skin. Isabella gasped, her knees weakening. But she didn't pull away. Still not afraid. Ravenna murmured. Terrified, Isabella whispered. But not of you. What then? Of never feeling this again. Ravenna made a noise that was almost a growl. Her hands gripped Isabella's waist, drawing her in, their bodies pressed flush. Her mouth hovered at Isabella's pulse point. She lingered there, breathing her in, trembling. And then pain. Sharp. Ecstatic. The bite was not gentle. It was real. A tear in the veil between fear and want. Isabella cried out, but not in protest. Her fingers tangled in Ravenna's hair, and she held her there. Held her like a secret she never wanted to release. Ravenna drank. Not deeply. Not to weaken. Just enough to bind. To mark. When she finally pulled back, her lips were stained red, her eyes blazing. Now, she said, voice raw, you're part of me. Isabella trembled in her arms.
Good.
Because I don't want to belong anywhere else. They stood in silence, breaths tangling in the space between. But the quiet didn't last. A knock.
Loud.
Brutal. Echoing down the hall like thunder. Ravenna's head snapped toward the door. No one comes here uninvited. Isabella straightened. Who would dare? Another knock. Then a voice.
Male.
Regal. Cruel. I come bearing law. And blood. Ravenna's eyes widened.
No.
It can't be. The door blasted inward. And standing in the entryway was a man with Ravenna's eyes. But no kindness. No soul. Just a hunger that made her seem merciful by comparison. Hello, little sister, he said, smiling with teeth too sharp to be human. I see you've been playing with your food. Isabella stepped forward, fury rising like a tide. But Ravenna's arm shot out to stop her. Don't, she whispered. That's not just my brother. That's the one who made me. The air turned to ice. Not the kind that bites the skin, but the kind that settles inside the lungs and freezes you from the inside out. Isabella couldn't move. Not because she was afraid, but because something about the man in the doorway defied movement, defied reason. He stood like a prince carved from the bones of forgotten kings, tall and impossibly elegant, his coat black as oil, his eyes twin eclipses that mirrored Ravenna's, but without a trace of softness. His presence filled the room like a shadow cast by something older than the stars. Ravenna hadn't spoken again. Her fingers trembled where they hovered near Isabella's arm, and her lips had lost all color. "You're not welcome here," she said finally, her voice low, strained. "You were banished. And yet," he said, stepping into the keep without hesitation, "you opened the door." "I didn't." "No," he said, smiling coldly. "But she did." His eyes flicked to Isabella. Her heart leapt in her throat. "What do you mean?" Ravenna's body blocked him instinctively, protectively. "Don't speak to her." "She called your name under moonlight," he said, circling them slowly, like a predator playing with prey. "She spilled blood, her own. I can smell it. And when she kissed your darkness willingly, she didn't just bind herself to you. She woke me." Isabella's blood went cold. "I didn't mean to." "Oh, but you did," he purred. "You reached for the truth. You pulled back the veil. And the moment you let her bite you, the seal broke." Ravenna's fists clenched. "You should still be trapped beneath the hollow." "And yet here I am," he said, spreading his arms mockingly. "Thanks to your little bride." "She's not." Ravenna stopped herself. Her voice cracked. She looked at Isabella. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret? Grief? Longing? Isabella stepped forward, despite the cold, despite the tremor in her knees. "Who are you?" "You can call me Morian," he said, bowing slightly. "Though I doubt the name means anything to you. I'm sure she's told you her tragic little story, how she was bitten on a battlefield, how she locked herself away to protect the world."
He grinned.
"She left out the part where I found her. I remade her." "You cursed her," Isabella said. "I saved her," Morian snapped. "From starvation.
From death.
From insignificance. She begged for the power. I gave it to her. And what did she do with it? She hid. Wrote love letters to mortals. Played pretend in crumbling castles. Disgraceful. She has more soul than you ever will," Isabella hissed. Morian's gaze sharpened. "Careful, princess. Your soul is quite ripe." Ravenna moved so fast the wind snapped. She stood between them in an instant, eyes glowing like twin blood moons. "Touch her, and I'll destroy you." Morian's laugh was a blade of silk. "Oh, sister. You couldn't destroy me then, and you won't now. But it's sweet that you care. Tell me, how long will she love you when she finds out what you really are?" Isabella spoke before Ravenna could. "I know what she is." "Do you?" Morian asked softly. "You know she's never gone more than a month without feeding? That she buried her last lover because she couldn't stop herself? That every time she kisses you, she fights the urge to devour you?" Ravenna flinched. "Stop it. You want her to stay," Morian said, circling again. "But she can't stay mortal forever. You've felt it already, haven't you, girl? The way your blood burns when she touches you? That's the bond forming. Slow. Inevitable. You've begun to change." Isabella's heart skipped. "What are you saying? You're becoming hers. Mind.
Blood. Bone.
Eventually, you'll hunger too." "No," Ravenna said, her voice breaking. "I haven't fed enough for that. I've been careful." "You drank from her on instinct," Morian whispered. "You marked her. You tied your curse to her vein." "No, it's already begun," he said, smiling cruelly. "The taste will change her. You'll lose her long before she ever realizes it." Isabella stood frozen. Her body still felt like hers. Her breath, her pulse, her skin. Nothing had changed. But something inside her chest began to thrum, like a second heartbeat. "I don't care," she said. "You will," Morian replied. "When you wake up in hunger. When the sight of your own hand terrifies you." Ravenna turned to Isabella. Her face was pale with horror. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." Isabella reached for her, took her hands. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever this becomes." You're not losing me.
Not now.
And what about me? Morian asked, voice rising, sharp and cold. Do you think I'll let her have peace while I rot in the dark? He snapped his fingers. The windows of the keep shattered inward, the wind howling as if it were alive. You woke me, princess. You don't get to walk away now. Ravenna snarled, her fangs fully extended. You want a war? Then try me. But Morian didn't attack. He smiled. Slowly. Coldly. Not tonight. I want you to feel the change first. I want her to feel it. Let her lie in your arms while her humanity decays. Let her look in the mirror and see nothing. Then I'll come for her. Or maybe she'll come to me. Either way, I'll win. And with that, he vanished into smoke and cold. The silence he left behind was unbearable. Ravenna collapsed to her knees. I didn't mean to curse you. I didn't mean to tie this to you. Isabella knelt with her, cupping her face. Then unbind it. I can't, Ravenna whispered. Not without killing you. A pause. Isabella swallowed. Then don't. Let it happen. Whatever I'm becoming, let me choose it. As long as it means staying with you. Ravenna stared at her. Something wild, something broken lit behind her eyes. You would let yourself turn for me? No, Isabella said. With you. And then she kissed her. Not gently. Not with restraint. But with the fire of someone who had chosen darkness and found love inside it. Ravenna pulled her close. Desperate. Terrified. Hungry. And underneath the kiss, Isabella could feel it, the shift. The bond. The echo of something ancient waking in her blood. She didn't flinch. She pulled Ravenna closer. Because whatever came next, she would face it in her arms. Even if it consumed them both. The transformation did not arrive like a thunderclap or a sudden blaze. It came like a tide. Gentle. Relentless. Inevitable. Isabella woke in Ravenna's bed, her body draped in velvet sheets that clung to her skin like whispers. Her mouth was dry. Her chest ached. But it wasn't pain, it was pressure. A need she didn't recognize, coiling somewhere deep inside her, waiting. She blinked slowly, adjusting to the dim candlelight. The room was drenched in shadows, but her eyes caught every detail. The silver threads in the canopy, the way the flame flickered against the farthest wall, the shape of Ravenna sitting silently in the chair across from her. Watching. Waiting. How long have you been there? Isabella asked, voice soft, throat raw. Since you stopped dreaming, Ravenna answered. She stood, her gown falling around her like liquid midnight, and crossed the room with silent steps. You were whispering in your sleep. My name. Over and over. I don't remember. You wouldn't. Not yet. Ravenna sat on the edge of the bed. Her eyes were unreadable. How do you feel? Isabella paused. Strange. My skin feels too tight. My heart slower. It's starting. The change? No, Ravenna murmured. The hunger. Isabella's breath hitched. I thought it would be violent. Like his. It might still be. But now it's only a taste. A shadow of what could be. She reached out, brushing hair from Isabella's forehead, fingers cool and trembling. You shouldn't have kissed me. I wanted to. You always want to. That's the danger. Then let it be dangerous, Isabella said, sitting up. She was wearing a silk robe she didn't remember putting on. Her bare legs brushed against Ravenna's, and it made her stomach twist in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I don't want to be protected from you anymore. You don't understand what this bond is doing to you. Then teach me. Ravenna's gaze darkened. Isabella, you called me beloved in your letters, but you've never said it to my face. Because I didn't want it to be true. And now I'm afraid it is. Isabella leaned forward, close enough to breathe Ravenna in. Then show me. You want the truth? All of it. Ravenna stood, reaching for her hand. Then come with me. They descended the inner staircase in silence. This path was different from the others, carved deeper into the mountain's belly, where the walls bled cold and the stone pulsed faintly with old magic. At the base, a door waited. Iron. sealed with runes that hissed at their approach. Ravenna pressed her palm to them. They glowed, then vanished. "This is where I feed," she said. "Where I go when the hunger can't be resisted. I kept you from it before, but if you're truly bound to me now, you have to see it." The door opened. The chamber beyond was a temple of shadows. Crimson glass lanterns floated midair, casting light that shimmered like blood in water. Chains hung from the ceiling, but not in cruelty. There was ceremony to their arrangement. The walls were lined with cushions, silks, and the faint scent of roses and iron. In the center of the room, a low dais. Black stone. A single velvet couch. "What is this?" Isabella asked. "Sanctuary. Confession. Need." Ravenna walked into the room and turned to face her. "If I feed here, it's with consent. With reverence. This place doesn't take, it exchanges. You give what you choose. I take only what I'm allowed." Isabella's heartbeat echoed in her ribs. "Have others come here?" "Yes." "Did you love them?" "No." Isabella stepped forward. "Will you feed for me again?" "Do you want me to?" "Yes." Ravenna's eyes shimmered. "Then lie down." Isabella obeyed, her breath shallow, the robe slipping off one shoulder as she reclined. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She watched as Ravenna approached, slow and graceful, her gown rustling like a sigh. She knelt beside the couch, her fingers grazing Isabella's knee, then her thigh, then the curve of her waist. "Tell me to stop," she said. "I won't. Then forgive me after." And then she bit. Not harshly, not like the first time. This was different. This was slow, sensual, almost tender. Isabella's back arched, her breath caught, her eyes fluttered shut. It was pleasure and pain and surrender all at once. She felt Ravenna feeding, not just on her blood, but on something deeper. Her trust, her want, her soul. When it ended, Isabella collapsed into Ravenna's arms, boneless and burning. Ravenna pressed kisses to her throat, her shoulder, her temple. "I could lose myself in you," she whispered. "Then do it," Isabella murmured. "I'm already gone." But just as Ravenna's mouth found hers, the shadows in the room shuddered. The chains overhead began to sway. A low, guttural sound rose from the walls. "What is that?" Isabella whispered, pulling back. Ravenna's eyes went wide.
"No."
"Not here. Not now." A black crack split the floor behind them. Smoke bled upward. From the darkness, a voice echoed, distorted, monstrous. "You thought you could hide her from me? Foolish girl. The bond is mine now." "Morian," Ravenna growled. "Get out." But the smoke didn't retreat. It grew, curling toward the ceiling, thickening into the shape of a man. His face was only partially formed, flickering like flame. "She's changing faster than you expected, isn't she?" "That's because she's mine now, too." Isabella clutched her chest. Her veins felt like fire. "What did he do to me?" "Nothing," Ravenna said quickly. "He's lying. You're still yourself." "Am I?" Isabella's hands trembled. "I feel him inside me, like poison." Morian laughed. "Not poison, little bride. Evolution." Ravenna surged forward, drawing energy from the floor, from the lanterns, from her own blood. "If you touch her soul again, I will burn you from existence." "Then let's test your flame," he sneered. The chamber exploded into motion. Light and shadow collided. Ravenna shielded Isabella with her body, her power sparking like lightning, but the smoke lashed out, catching her side. She screamed. Isabella rose, fury pulsing through her.
She didn't think.
She didn't need to think. Her hands rose, and the shadows obeyed. The smoke recoiled. Morian hissed.
"So."
"The air awakens." And then, with one final pulse of power, he vanished. Silence returned. But nothing was the same. Isabella turned to Ravenna, whose side bled silver. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." "It's not. He knows what you are now." "What am I?" Ravenna stared at her. "Something new. Something dangerous?" "No," Ravenna said, touching her cheek. Something I would give everything to protect. Isabella leaned in, her voice low. Then teach me how to survive him. Teach me how to fight. Ravenna's lips trembled. You'd stay, even knowing he'll come back? I'd stay even if it meant becoming a monster. You already are one, Ravenna whispered. But you're mine. And in the ruins of the sacred chamber, among broken lanterns and shifting shadows, they kissed again, this time not as mortal and monster, but as equals. Bound by blood.
Bound by choice.
Bound by a love that might be their salvation, or their ruin. The keep no longer whispered. It howled. The walls groaned with ancient voices, the shadows moved even when the torches held still, and the air vibrated with something primal, like the heartbeat of a beast roused from centuries of sleep. Black Thistle was no longer just a sanctuary. It had become a battlefield waiting to wake. Ravenna knew it. And so did Isabella. The days that followed bled into one another, laced with urgency. Sleep became a rarity. Hunger, a constant ache. And through it all, Isabella trained, not like a warrior, but like something else entirely. Like a creature being born. Ravenna guided her through it, not with harsh commands or blades, but with rituals older than language. Your blood is changing, she said one night, drawing a dagger across her own palm and letting the silver blood drip into a shallow bowl of obsidian. But you must shape it before it shapes you.
How?
Isabella asked, her hands trembling as she knelt before her.
Desire. Discipline.
Intention. Ravenna dipped her fingers into the blood, then traced a symbol over Isabella's sternum. It burned, but the pain was beautiful, like being branded with purpose. You don't control the power by suppressing it, Ravenna said. You become its home. You teach it that you are not prey. You are queen. And Isabella, gods, she rose like one. Each ritual carved the old girl away and left behind something sharper, hungrier, unbreakable. She could hear heartbeats through stone. Feel the thoughts of beasts before they bared their teeth. Taste emotion on Ravenna's skin like spice and smoke. But the hunger, yes, it deepened. And Ravenna felt it too. There were nights when they didn't speak, only stared across the room, breathing each other in like air before a storm. One touch, and they might have unraveled. One kiss too deep, and Isabella feared she'd never come back from it.
But restraint was part of the bond now.
And so they danced along that edge, night after night, two creatures born for ruin, held together by the thinnest thread of desire and control. Until the night the mirror cracked. Isabella had avoided the grand hall since the transformation began. Too many memories. Too many eyes, her own especially. But something pulled her there. A whisper. A flicker. She stepped inside, alone, candle in hand. And the moment her reflection met her gaze, the glass fractured. No violence. No shatter. Just a clean split, like the mirror had recognized her as something no longer whole. Something other. You saw it, Ravenna said behind her, sudden and soft. Isabella didn't turn. I don't look like her anymore.
No.
You don't. Am I becoming you? You're becoming yours. But yes, part of me is in you now. Forever. Does that frighten you? Yes. Isabella finally turned. Ravenna looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her skin was too pale. Her lips bitten raw. Because I know what loving me costs. And I see it in you. The shift, the craving, the edge. And it's beautiful. But it's mine, Isabella. My curse. Not yours. It's ours now, Isabella whispered. You gave me your truth. Let me carry it. Ravenna closed the distance between them, slower than usual, as if afraid that this time, the touch would destroy them both. He's coming soon, she said. I can feel him, feeding somewhere close, gathering strength. Then we don't wait. You don't understand what you'll face. Morian wasn't just my maker. He was the end of everything I was before him. He doesn't kill with fangs. He kills with doubt. He'll reach into your mind and twist everything you believe about me, about yourself. He'll offer you power in exchange for your love. And it will be tempting. Then we hold on to this. Isabella took her hand and pressed it over her own heart. To what's real. To us. Ravenna's breath shook. We won't win if you hesitate. Then make me unbreakable. That night, the final ritual began. Not in blood, not in silence, but in surrender. They undressed in the sacred chamber, not for pleasure, but for exposure. For honesty. Ravenna painted sigils across Isabella's spine, each stroke humming with ancestral power. Isabella marked Ravenna's throat with a symbol of bond, of union, of love chosen through pain. This will bind us beyond life, Ravenna said. Beyond death. Then do it, Isabella whispered. Mark me where it can't be undone. They stood chest to chest, breath to breath. And this time, the bite was mutual, simultaneous. Their fangs met flesh, and the magic screamed. The room pulsed white-hot, the floor cracked, the air was torn in half by the force of it. And when it faded, they were on their knees, clinging to one another, bleeding into each other's mouths, each heart beating inside the other's ribs. It was complete, final, irrevocable. And just as they rose, reborn, the torches blew out. The keep shook, and a laugh echoed through the walls. Did you think I would wait for an invitation this time? Morian's voice was everywhere. Inside the stone. Inside their bones. Come, little bride. Come, broken queen. Let me finish what I began. Isabella turned to Ravenna. Let's end him. And Ravenna, for the first time since her creation, smiled not with sorrow, but with fire. Together. They ascended the stairs hand in hand. The sky outside the keep had blackened. Lightning forked through the clouds. The doors burst open with a single glance from Ravenna, and the wind screamed around them. Morian stood at the edge of the courtyard, his coat fluttering, eyes glowing like two dying suns. You look radiant, he said to Isabella. Power suits you. So does your defeat, she said coldly. You should run. Oh, I never run. I take. He raised his hand, and the ground split open. Creatures poured out. Twisted things made of smoke and sorrow, bound in chains of bone. Isabella didn't wait. She moved. Faster than light. Faster than rage. She struck the first creature down with a blast of shadow so pure it turned to ash midair. Ravenna followed, her fangs bared, her hands glowing with red fire. They moved like dancers, like storms, like queens born of ruin. And Morian?
He watched, smiling.
Waiting. Because this wasn't the end. Not yet. The war had only just begun. The storm above Black Thistle Keep cracked open like a scream, lightning bleeding across the sky in veins of violent white, thunder rolling through the valley with the weight of ancient judgment. The courtyard was war incarnate. Smoke-borne beasts lunged and twisted through the air, their bodies writhing with every lash of Morian's power. The ground split and shifted beneath Isabella's feet, but she didn't stumble. She didn't pause. She had become something beyond mortal, beyond the frightened girl who had once read letters by moonlight and trembled at the sound of a name. Now her blood sang. Her hunger burned. Her hands summoned shadows that obeyed her will like loyal hounds, striking down anything that dared reach for Ravenna. Ravenna fought beside her, a vision of fire and fury, her eyes glowing like twin stars devouring everything in their orbit. Together, they moved in perfect symmetry, Ravenna unleashing pillars of crimson flame that reduced the creatures to ash, Isabella summoning blades of shadow that danced from her fingertips and carved through the darkness. But still, Morian stood untouched, watching, smiling, testing. Is this the best you have? He called, his voice amplified through the storm. Two cursed lovers playing war with borrowed power? Isabella turned toward him, her eyes blazing silver. Come find out. Morian stepped forward at last, his body shifting with every step, sometimes smoke, sometimes flesh, sometimes something in between. You know what I see when I look at you, princess, he hissed. A child who mistook desire for destiny. A mortal so desperate to matter, she let herself become mine. Ravenna snarled, stepping in front of Isabella. She is not yours. She's more mine than yours, little sister. I felt her blood change the moment you tasted her. I felt it sing. She belongs to the darkness now. Then she belongs to me, Ravenna said, because I am the darkness that chose her.
And with that, she attacked.
Their powers collided in a storm of light and shadow, a clash of two ancient forces born from the same blood but shaped by love and hate. Ravenna was fury, sharp, wild, born of pain and survival. Morian was precision, cold, brutal, honed by centuries of cruelty. They circled one another like wolves, trading blows that cracked the stones beneath them. Isabella stood back only for a moment, long enough to see Ravenna bleed, long enough to feel that ache inside her ignite. She moved before she could think. Her body was faster now, her instincts inhuman. She summoned her power not from rage, but from love, from the bond Ravenna had marked, from the blood they had shared, from the choice she had made when she kissed her and whispered with you. Her attack hit Morian like a blade of truth. His body twisted violently, the shadows around him unraveling as her power struck deep. He turned to her, eyes filled with disbelief. What are you? She stepped closer, her voice cold and clear. I'm not yours. I never was. I loved her before I knew what she was. I stayed after I found out. I chose her. That's what you never understood, Morian. You take, she offered. And I. Her hands ignited with power, laced with Ravenna's flame, her own shadow, and something older, something pure. I became this by loving her. She struck again. And this time, Morian screamed. His form began to unravel, torn between dimensions, the bond that tethered him to Isabella cracking under the weight of rejection. Ravenna moved beside her, her hands wrapping around Isabella's, their power merging, blood and flame, shadow and light, hunger and hope. Together, they cast him out, not with violence, but with love, with unity, with the one thing Morian could never replicate. His scream shattered the sky. His form collapsed in on itself. And then, silence. The creatures fell. The wind stopped. The storm broke. Black thistles stood untouched, bathed in the soft, silver glow of dawn. Isabella collapsed to her knees, gasping. Ravenna caught her before she hit the ground, holding her close, her arms wrapped tight around her waist. You're okay, Ravenna whispered, pressing her lips to Isabella's temple. You're safe. He's gone, Isabella breathed. I felt it. You severed him, Ravenna said. You chose me, and he couldn't survive it. Isabella leaned into her. Does this mean it's over? Ravenna nodded.
Yes.
He can't come back. Not now. Not ever. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, the world around them slowly returning to silence. The sun climbed higher. The mist faded. And Isabella, for the first time since the betrothal, felt something bloom in her chest that had nothing to do with fear. Hope. Later, in the garden where they had first spoken without veils, Ravenna placed a crown of blackthorn and moonflowers on Isabella's head. You're not just my bride, she said. You're my queen. Isabella smiled, reaching for her. Then kiss your queen. And Ravenna did. Without fear. Without restraint. Without holding back. It was a kiss that rewrote the ending of every sorrow they'd ever carried. A kiss that promised eternity, not as monsters, but as something new. Something theirs. Weeks later, envoys from the human kingdoms arrived at Black Thistle, expecting ruins, expecting death. Instead, they found two women sitting on twin thrones, one dressed in starlight, the other in fire, and an entire court kneeling before them. There were rumors, of course, that the princess had been cursed, that the vampire queen had devoured her and taken her place, that blood ruled, now instead of law. But those who came close, those who looked, they saw something else. They saw a bond forged not in fear, but in choice. They saw hands intertwined. They saw eyes that held galaxies. They saw love. And love, as it turned out, was the most dangerous magic of all.